I was at dinner with my family when my son-in-law glanced at me and declared loudly, "Is this worthless old lady going to devour everything once more?" The entire table burst into laughter. I rose gradually, dabbed my mouth, and stated, "Pardon me." The following morning, the bank contacted him, but allow me to explain how I reached that point. Because that evening, as they all chuckled, something within me ceased shattering and began solidifying. My name is Sarah Reynolds. I'm 70 years old. I have 3 kids, 7 grandkids, and a tale I never expected to share. For years, I was the lady who provided everything without expecting anything back. The one who prepared meals for 20 folks every Sunday. The one who looked after ill grandchildren as their parents labored. The one who loaned cash without formal agreement since family doesn't require documents. That Thursday meal was in the home where I resided with my husband, Robert, for 42 years. The same home where I nurtured my kids, where I displayed pictures of each birthday, each graduation, each baptism. The terracotta walls I coated myself when I still possessed the energy to ascend a ladder. The sturdy wooden dining set we acquired with Robert's initial salary as an engineer. But that evening, seated at my own table, I felt like an outsider. Emily, my youngest daughter, had made roast chicken. Michael, her spouse, occupied the head of the table, my spot. The spot where Robert had sat every evening for 4 decades. Now it belonged to him. I sat in a chair off to the side near the kitchen, as though I were the servant awaiting instructions. The grandchildren, Mason at 12 and Riley at 9, were fixated on their phones. They didn't even glance up as I dished out the rice. Emily appeared exhausted, with dark rings beneath her eyes and her hair in a disheveled ponytail. Michael wore a fresh shirt, a costly label, the sort that equals what I once budgeted for a week's groceries. I began serving myself another helping of chicken, merely a bit extra. I'd been preparing food for years, but now I seldom dined comfortably in my own residence. I constantly sensed I was obstructing, that I was occupying room, that I was squandering supplies that weren't mine. That's when Michael uttered those words. "Is this worthless old lady going to devour everything once more?" My fork halted in my grip. I scanned the table. Mason grinned while staring at his phone. Riley suppressed a chuckle. Emily, my Emily, she dropped her eyes to her dish and uttered nothing. Nothing. Michael chuckled louder as if he delivered the greatest punchline ever. "I'm only joking, mother-in-law, don't take offense. But you keep piling it on and then grumble about your belly aching." My throat stung. Not from the meal, but from the shouts I yearned to release that stayed trapped. I dabbed my mouth with the fabric napkin, the one I'd stitched 30 years earlier with my family's initials. I set the fork on the dish, deliberately creating minimal sound. I rose. "Pardon me." Nobody responded. Nobody inquired if I was fine. As I ascended the stairs to my room, the tiniest in the house, the one that once served as the sewing area, I heard their laughter resume. Someone activated the TV. I shut the door. I sat on the bed that groaned with each shift. And there, in the darkness, with the flavor of roast chicken lingering in my mouth, I reached the most crucial choice of my life. Enough. I retrieved my phone, an outdated version that Mason had labeled ancient last month. I looked up a number I hadn't called since Robert's burial. Mr. Henderson, my attorney, the same individual who prepared my husband's will, the one aware of every aspect of my possessions. I called. 3 rings, 4. "Sarah, what's wrong?" "Mr. Henderson, I must meet you tomorrow at the earliest hour and bring every document. Everyone." Silence came from the other side, then in a grave tone. "Are you certain?" I glanced at the shut door. Down below, an action film played. Blasts, yells, chuckles, more certain than I've ever been. I ended the call. I inhaled deeply. And for the initial time in 5 years since Robert passed, and I permitted Emily and Michael to assist with all matters, I experienced something akin to sharpness. I didn't know precisely what I'd do, but I knew that degradation would be the final one. Because what Michael didn't realize, what none of them realized, is that the worthless old lady had amassed a wealth they could scarcely envision. And tomorrow, I'd begin safeguarding it. If this tale is stirring your emotions, subscribe to the channel so you can keep following along in this narrative. Because what's ahead, even I didn't anticipate. That evening, I couldn't rest. I remained gazing at the fissured ceiling of my room, hearing the noises of a home that no longer seemed mine. The TV shutting off after midnight, Michael's steps climbing the stairs, the master bedroom door shutting, the one that had been my bedroom for 42 years. I rose before sunrise, 5 a.m. outside, darkness lingered, but I couldn't remain idle anymore. I opened the nightstand drawer and removed a corroded metal container, the same I'd preserved since my wedding. Inside were papers I hadn't examined since Robert's burial. I needed to recall who I'd been before turning into the phantom dwelling in the edge of her own home. My complete name is Sarah Reynolds. I entered the world in the Midwest in 1955. I pursued accounting when females of my era scarcely completed primary school. I finished with distinction. I labored in an auditing company for 15 years prior to my first child's birth. When I wed Robert, he was a fresh civil engineering graduate who scarcely made sufficient to cover rent for a 2-bedroom unit. I continued working. My earnings covered the initial payment for this home, the first furnishings, the first vehicle we owned. But nobody recalls that. To my kids, father was eternally the breadwinner. I was merely mother, the one who fixed breakfast and reviewed assignments. What they never learned is that when Robert launched his building firm, I was his associate, not officially, since back then, ladies weren't regarded seriously in commerce. But I managed the accounts. I bargained with vendors. I discovered the tax exemptions that preserved thousands of dollars annually. Each dollar Robert made, I increased through wise investments. I purchased a business property downtown when nobody desired to invest there. Today, it's valued at triple what I spent. I obtained stocks in firms that were emerging. Some failed. Others expanded so greatly they provided me yields of 300%. When Robert passed 5 years back from an abrupt heart attack, I fell apart. I lost my lifelong companion, my trusted advisor, the sole person who recognized the value of my contributions, even if others didn't notice. And in that instant of fragility, I committed the largest error of my existence. I granted them entry to all. Emily attended the burial with Michael. She embraced me sobbing and said, "Mom, don't fret about a thing, we'll handle it all." And I shattered, trusted her. I authorized a restricted power of attorney so she could aid with banking matters, with titles, with bill payments, just so you don't need to dash around as much. "Mom, you're not suited for these troubles anymore." Michael proposed they relocate with me so you're not isolated in this large home. I agreed. I believed it would be short-term. 3 months, perhaps 6, 5 years have elapsed. Gradually, I ceased deciding. Michael opined on all. Mother-in-law, better avoid renewing that deposit. The bank offers very poor rates. Don't fret about the real estate tax. I'll settle it using your card. Why do you wish to venture out? I'll fetch whatever you require. I persuaded myself they were looking after me, that I was a load and ought to be thankful they endured me. That morning, with the papers laid out on my bed, I perceived the reality with harsh distinctness. The home in my name, original titles stored in a secure deposit box that solely I could access. 2 business properties downtown in my name, leased to a coffee shop and a store, monthly earnings of $3,800 that went into an account Emily oversaw for me, an investment fund at the bank, $120,000. It produced interest I'd never witnessed again. And the detail that stole my breath. 2 years prior, Michael requested I co-sign a company loan. It's merely a procedure, mother-in-law. I require a guarantor to launch my repair garage. You won't expend a single dollar of your funds. I promise. I co-signed $80,000. The garage failed in 8 months. Michael informed me he experienced misfortune with an associate, that he'd repay every dollar, that he merely needed time. I never received a single dollar back, and the bank never pursued me. Why? Michael had persisted paying the lowest monthly installments with my funds, the funds from my leases, the one Emily allegedly oversaw. I sensed the walls constricting around me. For 5 years, I'd been oblivious, reliant, convinced my family shielded me when actually they were depleting me gradually. Michael's fresh vehicle, Emily's newest phone, the grandchildren's pricey private classes, the kitchen renovation we desperately required, all funded with my assets while I donned garments from 10 years prior and purchased the least costly soap at the market. I placed the papers in my handbag, a frayed fabric sack that Mason had termed a vagrant sack last week. I descended the stairs. In the kitchen, Michael was consuming eggs with sausage while viewing the news on his tablet. Emily was pressing her nurse attire. The children were still asleep. "Good morning," I uttered with the most impartial tone I could summon. Michael didn't even glance up. "Coffee's on the burner." I poured some. The coffee was chilled. Nobody had saved any for me. "I'm heading out for a bit," I announced. Emily glanced up. "Where? To handle some tasks. I need to meet someone. Want me to drive you?" "No, I'll use the bus." They shared a glance but uttered nothing. I departed the home before they could probe further. The bus stop was 2 blocks distant. I strolled slowly, sensing the weight of the handbag on my shoulder. It was the first occasion in months I'd ventured out solo. I always went with Emily or Michael, as if I were a kid who might wander off. On the bus, I sat near the window. The city glided by, structures, individuals, existence continuing without me. I alighted downtown, close to Mr. Henderson's workplace. It was a modest building, aged but properly maintained. I ascended the stairs to the 2nd level. My knees complained, but I disregarded them. The assistant identified me. "Mrs. Reynolds, Mr. Henderson awaits you." I stepped into the office. Mr. Henderson sat behind his desk, a gentleman of 75 with silver hair and heavy spectacles. He rose upon seeing me. "Sarah, have a seat. Coffee? No, thanks. Let's proceed directly." I removed the papers from my handbag and set them on the desk. I wish to cancel the power of attorney I granted Emily, all of it. And I want to alter the account overseers. Nobody else should access my funds. Mr. Henderson examined the papers. He adjusted his spectacles. "Are you positive? This might create issues in your family." "I am positive. And I desire something additional. I want to initiate the procedure to recover the loan I co-signed for Michael. The $80,000. He hasn't repaid me anything, and he's utilizing my leases to pay the bank." The attorney jotted notes. "That's going to be complex. The loan is in both names, but we can attempt. I need to view the original agreement. I have it here." I passed him the folder. He perused it swiftly. "Sarah, this loan is solely in your name." "What?" I seized the paper. My signature appeared, but Michael's name was absent. "How is that feasible? I co-signed for him." Mr. Henderson exhaled. "They deceived you. This isn't a cosign. This is a personal loan in your name. The $80,000 is your obligation. Michael must have employed your power of attorney to obtain it." My surroundings rotated. The air appeared to vanish from the room. "So the debt is mine. The payments come from my accounts." "Yes, and if you halt paying, the bank will pursue you." I felt anger surge in my chest, an anger I hadn't experienced in years. "What can I do?" "First, we cancel the power of attorney. Today. Then we modify all bank account access. We'll lock everything until we resolve this. And for the loan, we can sue Michael for fraud. But you'll need evidence that he misled you. I have the messages, the discussions. He asked me to co-sign, not to take the loan in my name." "Good. That's a beginning. But Sarah, this is going to be unpleasant. They are your family." I gazed at him. "Not any longer." 2 hours later, I departed the office with fresh papers. The power of attorney canceled. New bank cards in my name alone. The accounts locked until I could alter everything. And a lawsuit against Michael for fraud underway. I arrived home in the afternoon. Emily awaited me in the living room. "Mom, where have you been?" I was concerned. "I went to see my attorney." Her face blanched. "Why?" "To handle some matters. Don't worry." That evening at dinner, nobody talked. Michael eyed me oddly as if he detected something amiss. The next morning, the phone rang. It was the bank. Michael picked up. His expression altered as he heard. "What? Locked? Why?" He ended the call. He looked at me. "Mother-in-law, do you know about this?" "The accounts are locked. I can't settle the bills." I regarded him calmly. "Oh, that must be an error. Contact the bank again." But inwardly, I grinned. This was merely the start. The worthless old lady had just awakened, and she was prepared to reclaim what belonged to her. If you want to learn what occurred next, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because this tale is only commencing. When I returned home that afternoon, Emily was in the kitchen fixing dinner. She looked at me inquisitively. "Mom, what did the attorney say?" "Nothing significant, just examining some old documents." She didn't press. But I observed how she shared a glance with Michael when he arrived. That night, I retired early. I needed to reflect. The following day, the actual spectacle began. Michael rose early to head to work, or so he claimed. I heard him in the kitchen swearing. "Emily, the card isn't functioning. It says insufficient funds." "What? Let me check." I heard her attempt with her own card. "The same. Mom, did you do something me?" "No, perhaps it's a bank mistake. Call them." Michael did. I overheard the talk from my room. "Locked. On whose instruction?" "Mrs. Sarah Reynolds, but she's my mother-in-law. I have power of attorney." "Not anymore." The voice on the line was distinct. "The power of attorney was canceled yesterday. All accounts are now in Mrs. Reynolds' name only. No one else has access." Michael hung up. He rushed up the stairs. He pounded on my door. "Mother-in-law, open. We must discuss." I opened gradually. "Yes, what's this with the accounts? Why did you cancel the power of attorney?" "Because I can handle my funds alone. I don't need assistance anymore." "But the bills, the loan installments, how will we pay?" "That's your issue now, not mine." His face flushed. "You can't do this to us. We've been looking after you for years, looking after. You reside in my home without charge. You use my money. You deceived me into signing a loan that's now my debt. I know it all, Michael. His mouth opened and shut like a fish gasping. I didn't. Emily emerged behind him. Mom, what are you referring to? The loan, the $80,000. It's not a cosign. It's in my name. You used the power of attorney to secure it. You've been paying it with my leases. Emily looked at Michael. Is that accurate? He dropped his gaze. It was temporary. I was going to repay it. I just needed time. I looked at them. You have 30 days to repay me every penny or my attorney will handle it. And now, if you'll excuse me, I have matters to attend. I shut the door in their faces. Downstairs, I heard them quarreling. For the first time in years, I felt empowered. But this was just the beginning. There was more, much more. The repair garage wasn't the only thing they'd concealed from me. But that's for the next segment. Subscribe so you don't miss it. The ensuing days were strained. Michael and Emily scarcely addressed me. When they did, it was to request money. Mom, the power bill is due. Can you settle it? No, use your wages, but we lack enough. The grandchildren need new footwear. Then figure it out. I'm not your personal bank anymore. Michael attempted to speak with me privately. Mother-in-law, let's be sensible. That loan was for the family, for the home upgrades, for the children. You can't sue me. That will ruin us. You should have considered that before deceiving me. 30 days, Michael, not a day more. He departed angry. That evening I heard them conversing quietly, planning something, but I was ready. I'd altered all the locks on the vital drawers. I'd transferred my papers to the secure deposit box. I'd contacted the tenants of my business properties. The leases would now deposit straight into a new account in my name only. No more go-betweens. A week later, the initial check came. $3,800. I clutched it in my hands like a prize. My money, gained through my labor. I deposited it in the bank. I paid my own bills. For the first time in years, I felt self-reliant. Emily tried to appeal to my emotions. Mom, how can you do this to your grandchildren? They adore you. Do you want them to endure? They won't endure. You and Michael need to learn better management. And if you can't, perhaps you should find another residence. Her eyes enlarged. You'd evict us, your own family. This home is mine. I can do as I please. She departed sobbing. But her tears no longer affected me. I'd wept too many times by myself. The 30 days elapsed. Michael didn't pay a penny, so I phoned Mr. Henderson. Initiate the lawsuit. The next day, the server arrived. Michael signed for the documents. His expression when he read them was invaluable. Fraud, deception, demand for $80,000 plus interest. He came to my room. You can't do this. You're demolishing your family. No, Michael, you demolished it when you chose to steal from me. Now confront the results. The lawsuit commenced. It was nasty. Emily testified against me, claiming I was confused that I'd consented to all. But the proof was evident. The messages, the papers, the bank logs. The judge decided in my favor. Michael had to pay $95,000, the original loan plus interest and court costs. He had to sell his vehicle, secure another loan, work extra hours. Emily had to take a second position. The grandchildren had to transfer to public school. And me, I remained in my home, but now it was different. Now I held the control. 1 year later, they relocated. They couldn't tolerate the strain. Emily bid farewell with an embrace. Mom, I'm sorry. Maybe someday you can pardon us. Maybe, but not today. I shut the door. The home was quiet, but it was my quiet, my tranquility, my triumph. The worthless old lady had triumphed. And if you've reached this point, thanks for hearing my tale. Recall, it's never too late to defend yourself. Subscribe for more tales like this. See you next time.